Okay, everyone, and welcome back to the second episode, an installment to natural versus enhanced, and my journey from going from a natural athlete to an enhanced athlete. Now, I do apologize for the delay on this one because Australia just being a little bit more uptight with the rules, shall we say, and in terms of what I was going to do with adding in new substances and also, oscillating between, what I was going to change and manipulate. And remember, I'm consulting as well with a specialist. So first off, if you've not listened to the first episode, it is probably better that you go back and do so because you'll get an understanding of my reasoning of why and what I've currently been doing to this date, which has effectively been a TRT dose. Now, I appreciate a lot of the comments on those videos, and I'm really glad to hear a lot of feedback. I've met some of you in person as well in the gym, and you've said that it's really helped you. So that's been encouraging. That is my aim. As ever, disclaimer, I am not a doctor, although we will talk about a lot of misconceptions about doctors and perhaps some of the falsifying ideas within this episode. And this is purely my experience, and I am just sharing that. It is always best to do your own research and speak to the right sources and people, which sometimes is a little bit ironic with what we're going to talk about today, to do your own due diligence, because there are a lot of misconceptions about using hormones and performance enhancing drugs. So always be safe. But again, we're going to debust some of those myths today and some of the things that I was told versus what the actualities are. So as ever, what I want to do is start off by going through, in no particular order, some of the changes that have occurred since I have been using TRT or testosterone from the last episode, the changes that are going to be occurring from now on, or things that we have changed, and anything that I have noticed in terms of health progressions or changes and performance, lifestyle, nutrition, all of these things. I'm going to talk you through absolutely everything. So in every episode, you can get a good rundown of where I'm at on my journey, full transparency, what's changed with my blood work, all of these little things, right? And I will, of course, be putting some other information on the screen so you can see and reference physique updates, etc. So please stick along. And as ever, if you're here and you enjoy this content and it helps, please like the video, subscribe, obviously, for more. And if you found this valuable and you think it could help someone else in this space, then please share it as well. So let's dive in. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is the current changes that have occurred. So as a bit of a recap, I started from being a lifetime natural drug-free lifter, in all honesty, and I've documented where I've got with that, with fairly maybe above average genetics, but not exactly a genetic freak. So from that standpoint, I started to implement testosterone enanthate, one of the most bioidentical substances that we can use, and I was using 150 milligrams a week. And I was splitting that dose into 6 shots, okay? So 6 shots of 25 mgs. So ultimately, we were trying to distribute the testosterone as naturally as possible, as if the testes would do, rather than having one big shot or 2 shots a week, which is what a lot of people do, and they start on a lot of higher dose. So most people start on a 250 milligram dose of testosterone or TRT a week, and then maybe titrate up from there. Now, the problem with doing a single dose is that you get this massive spike, and then you get this drop off as well. So you get these peaks and troughs, and this is where usually you can get changes or some side effects in mood, but also your skin quality as well. It's not the whole reason, but there can be side effects, and this is why it's better to, what we'd say, microdose or distribute across the week a little bit more. And again, I'm still getting familiar with all the terminology, so I am still learning all this as well. As ever, I'm consulting with a professional overseas, and I'm looking and I'm utilizing that knowledge, and I'm getting the guidance of someone who is an expert in this space and has a lot of knowledge, so I can do things in the most efficacious way. So this is not me winging it. Of course, I am doing my own research and speaking to the right people. So I have a really good support system as well. And then again, we'll get into more of that within Australia, because this is, although it's very popular here, there's a lot of fit people, it's also the country that it's one of the hardest to source, and they're very strict with the ruling, ironically, for one of the fittest places, which produce some of the best athletes in the world. I just think that's ironic, but then overseas, the rules are very different, and it depends on where you are. So this is what you have to consider if you're watching overseas. So aside from me obviously gaining progress in the gym, one of the main things that I've noticed is more lifestyle benefits. Now, I've just turned 33 years old, so for me, it was not like I had a low level of testosterone and I'm using this for enhancements. I'm using this to utilize and leverage more muscle tissue, and instead of, say, being average, I want to be above average, hence the name enhancements, right? So sleep has improved. Joint health seems to have improved. I don't have any major injuries, but I do have a few niggles. I have noticed those have dissipated a lot. I'm noticing that I have more energy, more focus, more clarity. I've not noticed any skyrocket changes, meaning that I didn't just start taking testosterone and all of a sudden I was like, wow. It's not like taking an illicit drug or a substance like that, especially on a low dose. I've noticed that my sex drive has increased. Ultimately, something that you will notice or that you can gauge from this is whoever you are, your natural tendencies, they will be enhanced. So whatever your natural sort of set point is, it will enhance who you are. So if you're someone who's angry, it might make you a little bit more angry. You might have to look at that. If you're someone who's really sort of chilled, it might be a little bit more chilled, those sort of things in the personality traits. And again, it depends on the substances and there's a lot of caveats to this. But ultimately, those are the main things that I've found, sleep improvements and whatnot. So as a lifestyle, like as a whole, a lifestyle element, it has improved that side of things. And obviously just getting used to the protocols initially was a little foreign, like injecting and doing the jabs and whatnot. It's something that you get used to, but then it just becomes a normality of things. Now, in terms of weight, I've put on approximately 5-ish kilos of lean tissue. Now, harder to gauge purely based on the fact that when I started testosterone, I was reverse dieting out of a show. So of course I was always going to gain weight back because I was reverse dieting back to a normal level of body fat. And with the reintegration of volume and as hormones were naturally going to get back to their set point, I was going to gain some more lean tissue. So in terms of body composition and what we can ascertain from the level of body fat I have and the level of lean tissue I have, it's around about 5 kilo net gain at this point in time. And that's just doing body composition measurements and looking at data. So that's pretty good considering the amount and the dosage that I'm on. I'm currently 77 kilos and probably holding a lot more sort of size and density than I ever have at this body composition as well, which is great. And again, I'll put training footage on the screen. I'll put some posing footage on the screen throughout this so you can kind of see as well. And I'll see if I can get some comparison pics. I think this will really start to show dividends as I gain more lean tissue or when I actually do my next cut where I'll actually be leaner again and it'll be a bit more of a fair comparison because obviously in a gaining phase, you don't necessarily see or actualize that lean tissue as much. In terms of the auxiliaries, meaning the other supplements that I'm using to help or manage health, because again, I'm not taking high dosages of things here, so there's not too much. Apart from, again, eating fruits and vegetables and getting enough servings and doing all those basics, I'm also utilizing metformin. Metformin, generally known to be like a blood pressure medication, lowers blood pressures for diabetics, things like that, manages blood sugar levels and glucose. But metformin is also an antioxidant in its own right. It's like it helps manage oxidative stress, which can be great for skin health. It has a lot of other benefits as well. Now, different to what we initially used or what metformin was used for. A little bit like creatine. Creatine is used obviously to enhance performance, but now what we know is that it also improves your cognitive benefit, your cell regeneration and anti-aging. So metformin is a little bit like that. So that just helps with oxidative stress on the body. I'm taking some general vitamins and minerals, vitamin D to top up. I'm taking fish oil as well, vitamin C, just some basics just to make sure I'm topped up along with the whole foods. I'm still eating pretty much the same types of foods. Like I always eat relatively healthy. I have an 80-20 split, meaning that most of my food is whole foods from the earth, less processed, and 20% I enjoy. So I have a really good balance. I think last time we were filming, I was reversing out or reversing up to about 3,000-ish calories. I'm now on about 3,500. So I've not added a huge amount, but I have needed to increase my food because I found my weight just started to stagnate a little bit. So I've not been super aggressive. I didn't all of a sudden go, I need to eat loads of food. I don't want to obviously gain unnecessary levels of body fat. A little bit of recomp occurred, but just now titrating and increasing the carbohydrates up so that I can continue to gain weight and obviously maximize my performance. Hunger levels or I guess those sorts of things, I've not noticed really a massive change in that. Again, it's a very slow gradual burn, which has been relative to performance increases in the gym. So nutrition, again, apart from a little bit more food, has stayed relatively the same. Like I've not noticed massive differences or a need to eat an excessive amount more. Training wise, I am now doing a 5-day split. I was doing a 4-day split last time, and I'm hitting muscle groups at a higher frequency because my ability to recover is higher. So I'm now focusing on more arms and delts within my program, but every day I'm cycling through most muscle groups. So instead of, say, for example, just having 1 day on arms or legs, I've got legs on most days of the week, or I've got 1 or 2 leg exercises, or I might have 1 or 2 arm exercises, etc., with the main frequency being in the deltoids and arms. So we're hitting every muscle group about 3 times per week over 5 days. But again, instead of having, say, 1 day just destroying 1 muscle group or doing 4 and 5 sets, we're generally looking between 1 set and 1 back off set, or a myo rep match, using intensifiers to really equate volume, or maybe 2 or 3 straight sets at the very maximum. And again, I can put some screenshots of the programming up, as well as the training videos as well. I have noticed increases in performance, but more stamina, I think. And what I mean by that is I'm able to sustain my performance. So rather than having a drop off in training, although we're only training for 45 to 60 minutes in total, I'm not finding that my strength is dropping off. I'm able to sustain performance a lot better, but that also could just be the better management of volume and frequency as well, in relation to intensity, how hard I'm actually working, because instead of just, again, annihilating 1 or 2 muscle groups and doing more sets, we're doing less sets and equating more volume by the intensifiers, or even just working with more load. So I've noticed that there are peaks in strength, but again, nothing astronomical, because I've been on such a low dose. I'm not noticing these big leaps and bounds, which is good, because if I was doing that, or for example, I was trying to put lots and lots of weight on the bar, that's where injuries occur, because I've got to, as well as increase muscle tissue, I need to make sure that my ligaments and tendons and joints are also keeping up with this too. And I think that's a big mistake when people start using the enhancements, is that, you know, they get this rapid growth or this rapid gain in strength, and sometimes the body has not kept up with that, and therefore injuries occur. So we don't want that. So we are making steady progressions in weight and reps, and I'm able now to have a longer life in that. I'm noticing I'm not really hitting any major plateaus, apart from a few isolation exercises, which are easy to obviously swap out. But in being compound lifts, I'm about as strong as I ever have been, with joints feeling good, and using a lot better tempo, a lot better control, and just being a lot more concise with everything. I'm really trying to get the most out of this that I can. So on to what we're going to do going forward. So going forward, we are now going to be introducing 2 more compounds. So 2 compounds that we've recently introduced are growth hormone and primobolan. So primobolan, another type of testosterone and another anabolic, and also growth hormone. Now, growth hormone, contrary to the name, is not just going to help me grow on my own, but in the presence of testosterone, it is going to drive growth. So growth hormone, we're doing 2 IUs a day, 1 IU in the morning and 1 IU in the evening. We're doing this to, 1, take advantage of any lipolysis benefits in the morning, so sort of fasted fat loss, and also just for a better body composition, but spreading that out, and then at night to improve sleep. We could just do this PM if we wanted to, and we might move to that, but at the moment we're doing 1 IU AM, 1 IU in the PM. The primobolan is now just another testosterone, so we're going to try to find a ratio, because we can't just drive up, and this is what I'm learning. So again, if you're watching this and you're very advanced, you might be like, oh, I'm still learning all this. So again, this is the information passed down to me. So I apologize if some of the terminology is a little bit off, or I mix my words. Again, I'm sharing my experience as best I can as I'm learning. So adding in the primobolan is now going to supplement, so we have a different type of testosterone, so therefore the ratios are going to be more desirable, that we can titrate up and increase performance. Where if we just increase enanthate, we might run into some side effects, i.e. sex drive becomes too high, or we might again get gynecomastia, or estrogen rises too high, things like that, undesirable side effects. So this is why we're balancing it out. So ultimately we're going to run some ratios as such. So I'm still taking 150 milligrams of enanthate a week with 50 milligrams of primobolan, dosed twice a week, and then still the 6 days a week with the enanthate, and then 2 IU of growth hormone per day, 1 IU in the morning and 1 IU in the evening. We're going to run this for a period of time. We're going to do some bloods in about a month or so, and we're going to see how everything's looking. And then from there, if we want to, we'll titrate up the ratios of the primobolan to the enanthate to drive more anabolism. The growth hormone is pretty much a set and forget at this point in time. It's something that we can add in or out. And unlike testosterone, you can pop it in and pop it out without having any adverse effects, to my knowledge, unlike your testosterone, where obviously your testosterone, after that, you'll have to wait for it to recommence. Now, a couple of other things to consider that I've had some conversations with doctors about is obviously fertility. And this is a really big thing if you're a young gentleman and, well, one, you might not need to use testosterone straight away. And I wouldn't recommend it if you've not been training for at least 5 to 7 years really, really intelligently, or if you're still under the age of 25. But again, it is up to you. But I think a lot of the time people reach for this as a bit of a crux, and this is the icing on the cake. The training, the nutrition, the recovery is all the most important stuff, and I cannot underscore that enough. Well, fertility-wise, does testosterone actually suppress your follicular stimulating hormone and your ability to obviously be fertile? Yes, it does. But does it completely eradicate that? Well, based on the literature, from what we can see, not completely. It usually comes back in most men within the realms of 3, 6, or 12 months, or even sometimes a little bit longer. Now, that's not guaranteed, just like nothing in life, and it could shut you down completely. And this is where maybe you can freeze some sperm, and it really depends on your genetics and other things. But there are also things that you can do to re-stimulate that as well, like hypogonadotropins and whatnot. And again, this is all very dissimilar to what maybe the conventional doctor will tell you. So I wanted to talk about now some of the misinformation that I have come across that is not completely accurate, that I think scares people. And again, I'm not here to sell this to you at all. I'm not telling you to do it or not to do it. I'm just sharing you the facts and my experience as best as I can. So a lot of doctors, they will say, hey, you know what? No, this is not something that you should do because of the risk factors. But then a lot of doctors out there will say, hey, no, this is something viable. But it really comes down to the context again. It depends on, if you want kids, if you've had kids, your age, your levels of testosterone, your health risk factors, for example. Do you have any cardiovascular health risks in the family? All these things create a higher risk profile for you. So this is why you have to do bloods, you have to run these, and you need to make sure everything is good before you start putting in these substances to see whether you're actually going to be a candidate for it as well, apart from your own intuition of what you want to do. But you have to do the right things. So in our blood profiles, we use iMedical and we use a BB3. This is a full blood panel sports hormone test, so we can see all of the major factors and we can look through. The biggest changes obviously in mine were mainly just testosterone being increased. Everything else is great. All the blood markers are where they should be, or better than where they should be. And obviously my sex hormones, or my ability, not sex hormones, my fertility hormones are a little bit suppressed, right? Now, this is something that when the time comes, we'll use the hypogonadotropins, or we might just stop testosterone and wait for my natural testosterone to kick in. Now, again, that is not 100% guaranteed, and that is the risk that I take doing this, okay? The chances are very low based on my genetics, my father, what we can ascertain, and again, the literature. But there is always a risk, okay? Full transparency. But a lot of doctors may overpin this and say, oh no, it won't come back at all. And if you do this, that, and the other. And look, if you abuse a lot of substances, you're at a higher risk. But there are obviously a lot of cases out there where people are taking grams of gear a week and still get pregnant during this time. So again, there is arguments for and against, but I think the general consensus is that doctors are a bit more conservative, maybe a little closed off to all of the literature, and even will talk you away from this. So something to consider that I've noticed going to doctors myself, or even clients that have gone and even just asked the question. And this is where sometimes you've got to work with specialists who actually really specialize in these areas and know this intimately, rather than a general practitioner. And that's not rubbishing doctors. It's a big job. But again, if you look at what they deal with, it's a wide spectrum, and a lot of them are not going sort of all in on one area. And unfortunately, most doctors, and having coached a lot of them, don't really know that much about training and nutrition. And they're out of shape, and this is why they come and see people like us. So it's not discrediting them, it's just a couple of facts, and again, my observations and experience. Some of the other misconceptions are the dosages. Speaking to a lot of people that have come forth since I've been doing this, they take exceedingly high amounts when starting out, and a lot of young people just jump on it willy-nilly without understanding all of this. And I think this is why I'm sharing this, because you want to maximize your natural potential first. And most of you are not trying to be mass monsters. And if you are, you want to maximize the basics first. If you're going to be a mass monster, all the performance enhancing drugs do is allow you to recover and give you the ability to grow more. Are they powerful? Abso-fucking-lutely. They are very powerful, especially in the right dosages administered well. But it is not a game, and they can be very dangerous. You're playing God a little bit with this stuff. So you need to make sure more than ever that if you're introducing these substances, that your rest and recovery protocols are on point. You need to prioritize 8 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night. You need to be managing your physical and mental stress. You need to make sure that you're fueling the body correctly. You need to understand energy balance. You need to understand the protein, the fat, the carb equation, and fueling your body, the micronutrients, your fruits, your vegetables, the auxiliary things, like I mentioned, whether it's the metformin, the vitamins and minerals, and things that offset some of the damaging possible side effects that some of these hormones can elicit. And this is usually when you're getting into the higher echelon of things. And what I'm doing here is not even a recreational bodybuilder's dose of performance enhancing drugs. But still, I think a lot of people start too high and then they've not even got these basics right. And then they expect that the drugs to do the work. And that's not really the case. They are the supplement, they are the enhancement, but they are not the whole. And then training. A lot of people swinging weights around, no form, trying to lift too heavy, not going through deep ranges of motion, and therefore not maximizing the potential of using these substances for recovery, but also performance. So that's probably the biggest misconception about using drugs, is that you just pliff a pill called a steroid and you just get jacked. It's not the case. You still have to work very hard and you have to work very smart. The dosage in terms of the administration, a lot of people still believe on using the big harpoon needles, which are very dangerous. When you're going very deep intramuscularly, you need to know exactly where you're injecting. So there's a higher risk profile, especially if you're not a nurse or you don't have a good understanding of anatomy and physiology. And you're also causing a lot more damage to the skin as well. If you're repeatedly injecting yourself with a large gauge needle, you're going to be disrupting and causing damage within that space. And therefore you're going to develop scar tissue, and that's not going to be aesthetically pleasing, which is going to defeat the whole benefit of you improving your aesthetics, as well as other side effects that may occur. And then also having these high dosages, like I talked about at the beginning, and just doing them once or twice a week and having these big peaks and troughs, rather than having something that's a lot more steady and a lot more consistent going in. I think also in terms of the mindset around steroids, like if you think about, you say to someone, hey, steroids, they have a picture in their mind. That's not always the case. That is probably the stereotypical bodybuilder, someone who's massive, using a lot of gear, or maybe misusing it, right? Someone who might be a little bit angry, a little bit bravado, a little bit sort of like, hunty and grunty and all this sort of stuff. And that's not the case at all. There's a lot of men, there's a lot of women who use these drugs and that you probably wouldn't even know, and they don't have like that demeanor about them at all. So again, it's all about the individual, how they use them, how they respect them, but also how they conduct themselves as well. And that is probably one of the biggest misconceptions. Along with, and this is the last one that I'll leave it with, is keeping it real. A lot of people just don't keep it real, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And yeah, look, some of this information that I'm saying right now, I might have mistripped a word here and there, and I'm trying to put this together as best I can. And again, I'm not saying an expert, but I'm just here sharing my experience with you, and I'm being transparent about the fact that I once was natural and now I'm using enhancements, and what it actually entails and what it does, and some of the considerations, which quite frankly I couldn't really find a lot of information on. There are some great people out there, J3 University, Flex Success, to name a few, and people who are actually being amazing in the educational space, and they've got really, really, really good material on educating people in this space too, and how to utilize this and coaching their athletes and doing it in the most efficacious way and getting amazing results from it. But the problem is there's a lot of people out there lying, and it might be some of your favorite fitness people and zealots and gurus. And look, I'm not saying that you have to tell people what you're doing, and you do not have to advertise this, and I understand why a lot of people wouldn't, and I'm obviously taking a risk being transparent with you, right? But at the same time, we have an obligation, and I think if you're in a space where you have a certain level of physique and you're offering a service and an experience, and you're saying to people, hey, you can look like me specifically, which you should never do, because at the end of the day, you want to be the best version of yourself, which you can do, and you're being completely, opaque about or untruthful of the fact that you are an enhanced athlete, but you're advertising that you can look a certain way and do certain things, then I just don't think that is very honorable, and I don't think that's very ethical, and that's a lot of people. And then worse, they promote these stupid workouts which are super ineffective, and these cookie cutter meal plans which don't work, and it's like, well, that's not how you look like that. And these people also could just be more genetically predisposed, and therefore they're just selling people a lie. And people like us, good coaches, are there to pick up the pieces oftentimes, or at least try and be like, hey, actually, this is what we need to do to get to this point. And then if you want to do that, then, spoiler alert, there is another side to this, and it's called enhancements if you want to take it to that nth degree. But I think most people will be surprised at what they can do naturally. Now, last thing as well is if you want to get your hands on hormones and you want to do this properly, again, I'd recommend iMedical. I'm not sponsored by this at all, by the way. This is where you get your blood test from. And also, because you don't have to necessarily go to a doctor, because they won't give you this full blood panel, you can pay for it. It is signed off by an online doctor. You go to a allied pathology clinic and you will get your blood results. But then you need to speak to the right people, depending on the doctors that you have available, doctors that actually specialize in this space, hormone replacement therapy, people who are up to date with the research, etc. And in Australia, where I get my stuff from, is a place called Optimal Health. Optimal Health are a clinic. They're newly open for men. I believe there's another one in Sydney or Melbourne. And these guys will actually consult with doctors, with you, to help you get what you need with your name on it. So it's all above board at the higher grade, so pharmaceutical grade stuff. Now, this is ideally what you want to do. That's obviously not available to most people, and that's why a lot of people go underground, which some of it can be very high quality, some of it can't. It depends on the source, and this is where sometimes you have to do your own testing. So it's a little bit inconsistent in Australia, okay, but that is just the way things are at the moment in time. So you have to do your diligence, and this is why it's taken me a long time to get to this episode, to get what I needed, to be also to give you the information as well. So I'll pop a link to Optimal Health. I'll pop a link as well to a few of the resources below if you want to read up, or you want to sort of follow these guys that I'm mentioning that can actually educate you a little bit more in this space. But as ever, if you have any questions or you have any queries about the journey, again, please keep it positive. I'm doing my best here. I'm being open and transparent. Comment below, like the video, of course, and again, share it with anyone that you think may help. Until the next episode, guys, keep it fearless. I'll keep you updated. And of course, here's to the gains.